So, well, that was a pretty powerful experience. I mean, it's more documentary than a documentary. It's like a super documentary with actors.
Yeah, I don't know really, because we watched.
That's how it looks.
Because we watched a couple of Mexican films, about that whole situation, and there's a couple of really wonderful films that you would think were documentaries, and this is far more stylized because I mean it is it's hopefully a commercial movie, so it's a balance, isn't it? But watching it again, I haven't obviously seen it for a couple of months now, and some of it I kind of, but some of it I think is quite powerful.
Caught.
Yeah.
It always caught. Always really edgy. Yeah. People in and out of the frame. Never classically, rarely I should say, classically framed. Always like cameras catching them, not in an NYPD blues type style, but framing, like letting things happen, things develop without being prissy over classical framing. I mean, that was you bringing that to the table.
Yeah, but I think Denis is I think it's real strength. Watching it again, it's like also he holds on a reaction where a lot of directors don't. He's got the sort of the presence of mind to like hold a shot and be away from something and let the audience think about it for a while. Like the end of a scene just end and cut. Well, I mean, it was really important in prep. We spent a lot of time talking about how, the ins and outs of scenes, those transitions. And again, watching it now, I think some of the transitions are really quite powerful. I actually hadn't really noticed how strong they were till now, But we that was something we really talked about.
For instance, the scene where they go down into the tunnel and shots on them, and it's right against the last light in the sky. You're just holding it, and they go away from you.
Yeah. So
and they're totally from the farthest left and on the farthest right.
Yeah.
Never, you would go wider to get that. One could say that, but the power of it is that for me, it's like it's cool. It's like cameraman at that, camera person at that situation with it happening for real, desperately like, what do I do? Do I cut here or do I run after them? Do I get on with it and go with them, or shall I just hold this? And you held it, and they just until the last heads go.
Yeah.
And how was that? Did that happen, or was that?
Well, that whole sequence. I mean, that was basically shot in over 2 nights. 2 magic hours, and obviously that's not a lot of time really. You've got an hour on each evening.
Not at all.
So we storyboarded all of that,
right?
And then I kind of mapped out. I went there at dusk a couple of times and mapped out where the shots would be, and then with the location manager, I had him walk down like as though he was one of the guys walking down the hill, and marked out where I put the track and everything. So it was kind of really planned out. But we got incredibly lucky, with the light, because we had 2 matching. Well, actually, the shot you're talking about doesn't match the rest of the scene because the clouds are different. But by the time we went to that, the clouds had all kind of gone on the second night. But most of it matches pretty well. We shot really quickly on the first night. It's the
framing. It's the fact that you could say a weaker director perhaps would have said, "Oh, should we do it again and make them more?" in the middle of frame, the 2 groups. Yeah. They're so edgy. It just gives it such a realistic, heightened, but a realistic take. You just don't expect it. And I think that happens over and over with figures, with overs, and it's always a surprise. It never ordinary, never expected, always surprises you, shocks you. The tension is fantastic.
Well, I think what you're saying there, I think in that shot, the tension really builds because of that.
Yes, it does, because it's so real. It's not pat. It's not easy. It's got like they're going to hell. Like they're going into hell, and this is just us seeing them going to hell.
Yeah.
So
we had actually storyboarded. So we had storyboarded that. Well, a couple more shots I'm remembering now, because we storyboarded kind of following them a handheld going down into the darkness, and yet it was just you couldn't use it, but we didn't have time to shoot it. It was not a long schedule. It was like, I don't know, 54 days or something like that. So pretty tight, really, on that kind of film. So you had to really cut things to bare bones.
Yeah. His first film, Incendi.
That wasn't his first. He did quite a few films in Canada before that one.
Yes, but that was his first
one that really.
Yeah, really. Yeah. That I was, okay. You know, to me, didn't have that, and yet it not the same subject matter, but that same tension, that same story about that woman. There are parallels to it, and I mean, I found that film Incendi a really powerful film.
Yeah.
Did you?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I was like, once I'd seen that, I thought this director's really special.
You wanted to work with him?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that his sensibility was something I really related to. I loved that film. I thought it was fantastic.
I loved that film.
That scene where, the woman's on the bus and exploding and everything.
Yes.
It's just like incredible, because it's so, it's not dramatized, but it makes it so much more dramatic because it isn't. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's full of surprises.
Yeah.
It's like this in a way. It's full of corners, T-junctions and corners. And you never, ever, anytime you think you're safe, you're never safe in it. So, but it hasn't got this. It hasn't got that feel. And you must have brought that to the table. Did he seek you out, or did you seek him out to work with him?
Well, it's funny, because I introduced him once at the Academy when on Sunday was up for a foreign film, Oscar and stuff, and they have this, evening soiree, and the Academy asked me to introduce him, and it was just by chance, and.
You said the words to introduce the film. You went up and said the
words.
No,
it was like an evening. It wasn't showing the film. The film had been seen before, and it was just people getting together with cocktails, as they do. Yeah. And so I had to say a few words about him and his previous films and introduce him. So we chatted then, and then when later I heard, I don't know, probably read in the trades or something, it was doing this film Prisoners in the States. I asked Paul, the agent, to put my name there, and thankfully he just sort of jumped.
Very great, great. Yeah. And I mean, you've only done 2 films, not dozens of films together. Yet there's something there. There's a dynamic there.
We hit it off
Prisoners was really special in terms of the collaboration, I thought, between the two of you. And this certainly advances that collaboration. So it's obviously something that's ongoing now. You've got
I hope so. I mean, I didn't do the last film with him because I thought I was committed, but in the end it wasn't bad. But films fall through. I'm hoping to do another one with him next year. Yeah. But we just hit it off, and I just love the fact that. I mean, I love talking script, I don't just like shooting pretty pictures. And I just love the fact that he's so open. We sit and talk about the script and the transitions and the dialogue. And for instance, in that film, we talked about the scene where Alejandro finally gets to confront Fausto and his family. And the original scene, there's a long dialogue between Alejandro and Fausto where he says, do you want me to shoot you or your wife? And it goes on, it's really good dialogue, it's great, but it goes on a long time. And we talked around it and sort of came up with the idea that, that's right, and he let the 2 boys go. The 2 boys left, and he had this conversation between Fausto and his wife and said, I'll kill your wife or you. And then Fausto and his wife argue because he says, well, I'll kill her, as you would. And, sorry, James, no. So we said, well, this to show how far this character has descended into the abyss.
Yeah.
We said, well, why don't you just shoot the kid and the wife?
Right.
You know.
Where was that said? At this location long before, in prep?
No, we were just sitting in the office talking about the script before we'd storyboarded anything.
Yeah, you weren't there on location.
No. It was just talking about the script and like how we can condense it, and we thought a bit wordy, and it was just general ideas. That's what I really loved about working with Denis on Prisoners. We just talked ideas, really.
Right.
Because I don't think until you understand a scene you can really photograph it. You know what I mean? It's right, isn't it? You have to understand what the core is.
Yeah.
What the director's trying to tell the audience what's really important, then strip away the stuff
essence.
that's,
the essence of it, the heart of it.
Sometimes the script is like visual, flowery stuff all over the place. And It's got nothing to do with what the core, the essence of it is.
But he listens. He's a listener as well.
Well, he's trying to do that as well. He's asking, he's asking. And the conversation is as much, I'm just a sounding board to him, developing his own ideas. So. But I love that. It's great because I get to understand what's in his head.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I wish I didn't, but He did this film before on Sundays, right, where I don't know if you've seen it, I forget what it's called now, but it's got a talking fish on a fishmonger's slab, and it's got the voice of Tom Waits. It's really good. He's got very strange things going on in his head.
Yeah. So if he's listening, you have this early collaboration, and he's listening. Now that's quite unusual anyway. I mean, it can be like for a lot of the time on a set, but to spend time with you, going over a script, and collaborating like that, and listening and deciding that for you as the DP and him, I mean, that's fantastic, and that's how it is with him, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's part of
you and him in a room together, just you two.
Yeah, but it's part of the process. It's part of sitting down and starting a storyboard. But then we say, well, let's talk about the particular scenes, and then you talk about the schedule and say, well, it's not doable. What can we cut out? I mean, that's the usual thing, isn't it? You know what it's like.
Yes.
I mean, you think, well,
but it's not necessarily the DP who's there with him when that decision's being made.
Yeah, probably not.
And how often are storyboards really done with the DP there? Quite often they're not. Do you always?
With Joel and Ethan, for instance, sometimes. Well, they always do their first part of the storyboards. Yeah. By themselves, and then sometimes I'll sit with them. When I first worked with them, I would sit with them. When we did Barton Fink, I sat with them for like 4 or 5 weeks, but not so much recently. But it depends. It is nice, I think, as I say, to get to sit with a director and just have those conversations, and then help with the storyboards, and then you get a better understanding
completely.
of it, don't you?
It's amazing how many directors are too busy to do that.
Yeah, and you might never have a conversation with a director until you get on the set, and then it's really hard to find what they're really looking at.
Like some directors would say, don't worry about it. I like to do a storyboard just so that I know for myself. Yeah. I've got a game plan. Don't concern yourself. Which I always think, that's not really. Where I'm at, like that. Yeah. It's very nice to be involved. And if it's not a storyboard, walking round the locations and working out how you're going to do it for a shot list. Yeah. Did you do that in all the locations? Walk together and
we
walk and talk
all the locations together and discuss the pros and cons and absolutely.
In terms of the lighting, I mean, obviously. It's not, but it looks like a very small package that you carried with you to be speedy and flexible.
Yeah,
is
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think if there was anything that big in it. Not really, no. It was all very
small.
Lighting-wise, small. Yeah.
Easy, not easy, but stuff that you could fling up quite.
It was the same on Prisoners, really. But that's the nature of also working with the Alexa, and you know what it's like. You can do so much more with it. I remember on Prisoners, we lit the exterior of the woman's house where she's got Hugh Jackman in the hole, and where what's his name comes out with a dog, and Hugh Jackman confronts him in the street. I think we lit the whole scene with 2 1K pups and like 6 tweenies. And my key grip from New York, I'd never seen anything like it. He's going, oh, you must be kidding. Who's going on about it for
You
days?
can't do this.
You know, you can't
do this to
there was
me.
a couple of 60-watt bulbs on the house, you know, and that was about it. I mean, but it's great to be able to do that, isn't it? You know, and especially in a film like this. I mean, yeah. I mean, but you know, you think of it. It's most of it. It's about the shadows and the darkness. I mean, the most amount of light used was on the interior of the SWAT house because that was a set, you know, and it had a painted back in to match the exterior. But I knew you needed to bring it up to a certain level just to make it feel like you were shooting, you know, at a 4 or 5, like you would if it was a location.
Which was the SWAT house?
Where the opening where they
where she went
through
with
the wall.
there.
Yeah, right at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
The first scene where they go through. I thought you meant the next one where they were at the table and she was outside of the room before she was called in.
Oh, the big...
Was that a build as well?
That was a build on a location. So there was like nothing there really. It was just a space.
Within a warehousey type thing.
Yeah, so everything was put in there, all the glass booth and everything. And that was, again, you know, Patrice, the set designer, very involved in all those conversations about, you know, the way Denis wanted to stage that with them sitting outside and the table behind.
Yes.
You know, so it's all very well worked out. You know.
Were there quite a lot of builds within the film for interiors?
Right, so the SWAT house was that. Yeah, I mean the Faustus house was
motel rooms
a
and
new
stuff.
house. The motel, the interior of the motel room with all the SWAT guys was a build. Yeah.
Yeah. How would you?
It's like, that would have been
really pushing it.
Yeah, we could have done. We'd have had to knock 2 together, but
or wide lenses, and we don't.
Yeah, no, it was a nightmare.
Awful choice.
I remember shooting on Valley of Ely, you know, and shooting Tommy Lee in this motel room, and it was bad enough just with him, you know. It was like a nightmare.
Yes, I've done them.
Yeah,
and it reduces the choices. So it quite often.
But sometimes it's good, isn't it? I mean, because like on No Country, I'm just rambling now, but you know when where Tommy Lee goes back to the motel where Josh is killed, and where Moss is killed, and goes in and sits on the bed. Well, I mean that's all a real motel room because you really want the exterior, and you couldn't really do it on stage.
When you need that, there's value, but when you don't. And it's not really, in a way, it's not useful.
Yeah.
I mean, you must like I am, have mixed emotions about whether it's better as a build or a real location, because one is, both of them have their plus and minuses.
I think if you've got the time, I think I'd always prefer being on location. But then, you know, if you're on a day interior, the sun's always changing. If it's a long scene, so you're screwed that way. And if it's a night, then the night's ending, and you can't work a long night, and you know, it's all those things. Obviously, But I mean, then you know, again, so this was fairly tight schedule, so we were trying to figure how we could take some of the night shooting out of it and stuff. So like, all the stuff in the SUV when they've got the guy in the back of the car, you know, the guy that seduces Kate.
Yes.
I mean, all that's on. Just with the blacks on the stage, you know, because you're not going to, you know, I mean, unless you're really well off, you're not going to do that on location.
And everybody exhausted and all working through the night for what?
Yeah, and a lot of the car shots are done poor man's on stage. You know, when first Silvio the cop, where Alejandro's in the back, it's all on stage. You know, all the shots looking back. Well, actually, even 1 or 2 of them looking in the mirror are done on stage, you know. But then you do a couple of shots on location where you actually see the road, and then you don't think about it.
The profile of the car and them stepping out and all that. But otherwise, it's like you're really digging a hole for yourself, because if it's like, oh no, it's got to be night. It has to be night because it's nighttime and we're in a car and we see out, and then it's kind of, oh God. Turnaround, extra days. I mean, you're adding like a week to the. Aren't you? I mean, over and over, and you have to somewhere.
Yeah, so I don't think we had a block of night shooting. We did the usual. You know, you'd end up going later in the week, and then Thursday and Friday would be night shoots, and then you'd be back on days on Monday. You know, it's like
absolutely
jet lag every weekend.
Yes. Yeah, red eye
Yeah.
every weekend.
Yeah.
And so the dynamic of, if you storyboarded the whole film with him,
No.
some
Just
of it,
key scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, and then sometimes we'd throw them away.
yeah,
But we'd even if we didn't storyboard it, like the last sequence, in the kitchen with Alejandro and Kate. I mean, we talked about how to shoot that. But then it's all part of the conversation builds. I mean,
yes, it does.
it's like once
Yeah.
on Prisoners, we talked about the first initial talk was out. Well, are we going to do it naturalistic? Shall we do it handheld? Shall we shoot it all handheld? And then gradually we said, no, it's not really that. It is more once upon a time, it's
Yes.
not documentary realism, and I don't really think that's any more real anyway. So.
I mean,
So,
yeah,
yes.
the storyboards are great, but then you get to the location, you've got all those testosterone-fueled actors in this film.
Yeah,
All those,
I mean,
oh my God, they're like such a macho bunch. They must be getting in the room and saying, no, we want to be doing this.
Yeah,
there's a
bit.
storyboard, but no.
A little bit, but
Yeah.
a little bit. But we would do rehearsals and work it out. I mean, it's funny because all the films I've done with Joel and Ethan, they've all been storyboarded.
Yeah.
But I mean, the only scenes we never storyboarded was part of True Grit, where they're around the campfire, and that was just too complicated, number of characters and horses and stuff. But otherwise, everything's been storyboarded. I can't think of a single scene
Yes.
where the actors haven't actually
Adhere
blocked
to
it out.
Yeah.
Without seeing the storyboards,
Right.
they blocked it out, and you go, well, that just
Well,
matches the storyboard.
Fantastic.
They walk
Yeah.
over there. It's all
Fantastic.
It's funny, really.
Yeah, very good.
But
And
I think if the director's got the concept in his head, then it somehow permeates down or whatever.
through the cast
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And perhaps that's also an incredible intelligence working of knowing of a visual language and knowing how it could work, and then it falls into place.
Yeah.
With a little bit of cajoling
Yeah.
of if you were over, and
Yeah.
see how that plays, and then it's
Yeah.
the storyboard.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
And it's things you can explain. I mean, by the time we shot like the last scene in the kitchen with Alejandro and Kate, I mean, I knew Benicio there as well enough by then, that I'd say, well, I don't really want to light you. If you sit here, the light's behind you. Kate's the one in the light, because she's the rabbit in the spotlight. There's all that sort of stuff. So after you become familiar with an actor, you can have that conversation, usually, Even with Tommy Lee Jones, who's quite, what he's like, but
Yes.
even you can have those conversations and say, well, I don't really want to light you in this shot. I'd like to see you silhouette and profile, and you go, oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
Where do I go?
Yeah.
If they understand why you're doing it and that it's going to actually enhance
And there's
the scene.
nothing on them at all.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like,
they're
where is
okay,
my-
but you've got to be careful.
Yeah. Where's my light? So that dynamic like that, and then you're on the set and you're shooting. Is he with the actors all the time? Does he leave it to you to basically, once you've had that dialogue, you've got this thing going, and it's all the shorthand, the storyboards that you walked and talked.
Very much talked about on set, though.
Yeah.
You do a blocking rehearsal, and then usually we would have time to talk about the scene and whether we stuck with the storyboards or not. I mean,
Right.
I think we'd always look at it fresh, really. But
When
we
they're-
would know, like we're saying, you do the storyboards and it helps you focus on what the key elements are, even if you don't stick to those particular shots.
Yes.
It's
Drawing out the close-ups that are essential,
Yeah.
etc., or
But often-
the essence.
Yeah,
of it,
but often, the director actually after the blocking,
yeah.
there's the assistant saying, no, we can't block anymore, we've got to get shooting. And,
Yeah.
and the director usually goes off with the actors to finesse
Rehearse it,
the scene and the performance, and then they kind of leave you, don't they, really,
Yes.
so.
Yes. It's a dangerous thing to be left at that point if it hasn't been blocked, if it hasn't been worked out right through.
Or you end up saying, oh, well, we'll do it in a wide shot, and by the time they get back, they'll have sorted it out, so we'll know what the scene is by then, You do, don't you?
Yes. But sometimes it's like, okay, it is like digging a hole. Everything's great until, how are we going to play this out?
Yeah. Well, the shot where they come back from Juarez in the vehicles, and
Yes.
they skid to, and they get out and they take out Guillermo, And then, you play all that dialogue between Josh and Kate and Emily in that long shot.
Right, yeah.
We never rehearsed that. The light was great. Oh, you can't keep rehearsing the things coming in, all people getting in and out of vehicles. It's stupid. Let's just shoot whatever they do.
Yeah.
So they come in and out, and that just sort of happens. And after we'd done, a couple of takes of that, I said to Denis, well, what do you think? Are we going to do overs? And she said, no, I think we'll move on.
Yeah,
He was quite happy.
Worked.
It wasn't like I'm going to play it in this shot.
Right.
It was like, hey, that really works. It was, it was the run on to the idea of this matching cut of the things coming to a stop, and that it wasn't originally intended to be the whole scene.
Right, but no other coverage was shot to cover it. No. He just walked away.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's a very brave man.
Yeah, no,
he hasn't got all that, the possibility of getting the scissors in. Right. He's going to play it.
Right.
That's very nice.
Very like that. Actually.
Very nice.
Yeah, most of it was like that. I mean, there's not an enormous number of shots we did in each sequence of the scenes that are in there that were cut out.
Right.
That's what we shot. It's there. What's being cut out is there were more introductions of the other characters, that were like cross-cut at the beginning.
Right.
You saw the boy.
Like the boy in his face.
Yeah, you saw him earlier, and then you saw Manuel Diaz earlier, and the swimming pool. That little bit was started earlier in the original.
Saw him with more of a family life.
Yeah, and you also saw Alejandro. There was a scene that we shot in Veracruz in Mexico on the beach, and it was a scene where that started the film actually with Benicio, but that in the cut it just didn't feel right. So what went were actually elements. At one point they were actually talking about taking all of Silvio and the boy out. That's so to me it's so poignant. You keep going to this and it only really connects at the end.
Yes, you're waiting and waiting for him to appear.
Why do you keep going to that?
Yeah.
But and I thought it looked nice, so I'd have been upset if that went. But, you know what it's like.
It's very nice, the interior. The interior of that room was lovely. Very, very safe.
Yeah,
it
but
was
I
very
thought the
safe
way you build up the cop as this kind of, a likeable, and scoundrel, and then he's shot, and then you really feel something for the kid, don't you?
So, to go back to your roots, to your documentary roots, I mean, looking at that, I mean, they were incredibly important where you came from.
Well, I think so. I mean, I think it's definitely in terms of operating, same as you, right? I mean, in terms of operating and framing and being able to float with the actors, finesse it take to take. I think that was important. But yeah, definitely lighting as well, that sort of minimalism.
Yeah, 2 blondes and 4 redheads or
whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, like all the car stuff is lit with a fluorescent tube on the hood and stuff like that, that's what I do.
But the whole thing about this is your only opportunity to get this kind of thing, whether it's your documentaries you photograph with tribal people or war zones or on the round the world yacht race or whatever it was, you only get one shot. Nobody does it again. You only get one shot at it. Now that speaks loud and clear from what I'm looking at there. That is almost the most important thing of where you are with that camera.
Yeah.
Where you're pointing it from.
Well, I think we both we've talked about this before. I think to me that's even more important than the lighting, really.
Yes.
Just the placement and the balance of the frame and the way the camera's sort of moving with the characters, whatever.
Yes, well, it certainly shows loud and clear on this. And the Alexa that you used, did you use a lightweight one for a lot of it? Or just a XT Studio?
Yeah, I like the Studio because I like the optical viewfinder. But I work a lot on a little aerocrane jib arm and a remote head, and so a lot of the time, we were using the Studio because I like to look through it. It's lighting
as you're walking it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, it's Absolutely.
Oh, when you're lighting
on a
it.
power
Yeah,
pump.
sorry.
Yeah, when I'm
when you're lighting, not when
light
you're
or whatever.
operating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So you
mean,
still,
it's easy.
yeah.
Yeah, I still do that. It's easier because you do have a monitor to look at and all that, but I still like looking through a camera.
Right.
I hide by looking through the camera
Yeah.
too. People don't
So do
disturb
I.
me. Up
So do I.
I.
They're frightened They're
thinking.
frightened to disturb you in case anything goes
That's
wrong.
right.
They think if they interrupt you, it's going to be
right. Yeah, think
shot to
something,
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is just kind of going, how do I do this?
So on this film, you had the same kind of rig like that you always used on the aero crane.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. And then we had in the car stuff. We had a little Scorpio micro head. You've seen those?
Right.
Fantastic, which you could use with the Alexa M.
Right.
Because it's light enough. It's a tiny little head, so we could put it in the car instead of I hate car shuts. You just got to do lock-offs all the time, haven't you? But just to be on this head, just gives it a little bit of motion. You hardly see it, but it just gives it a little flip. Especially that stuff going in that we shot in Mexico. That was really important. Just to have those little camera moves just a few times, just gives it a bit of life.
Yes, and gives the feeling that it's on your shoulder, but it's not.
Yeah, but
which is really awkward in cars.
Well, you know where you do it.
Absolutely,
speeding
all over
around
the
like
shop.
that, you'd be in a mess.
So that's how you were in the cars with a small M and a micro head, and sticking it in through the windows.
Yeah.
And, yeah. No, it had a very. The camera was in very good places in the car, places where you'd need a couple of years ago. You'd need a car chopped in half. All that.
Yeah, so
Did you have any of that sort of?
No, we had like,
real cars, real screens.
Yeah, we had I think 3 vehicles so we could leapfrog. One would be the exterior vehicle, and then we had 2 others for interior shots. So we leapfrogged between them,
Prep for interiors. Yeah. Sound and all.
So we'd do this rig and then do that rig, and most of it was free drive. 1 or 2 were towed, but I think all the stuff in Mexico City we shot was all free drive. Yeah. So I was hiding in the back with a console or something like that.
Right. So no pulling it along on low loaders on the process trailers.
We did some, but I mean, I don't think. No, we didn't do anything in Mexico because we wanted to go too fast, and besides, we wanted to work too fast to be able to do that. Changing cars over and shit. It just takes too much time.
So free drive, and in the boot, in the trunk, a lot of gear. Recording decks and whatever.
Yeah, just minimal. But
one camera in there, one camera at a time.
We only ever shot
always on camera. Like we do.
I don't think we ever shot anything 2 camera. We had 2 cameras. Even at the border crossing, we only had 2 cameras so we could leapfrog.
Right. So in the cars, obviously, I always think that it takes sound longer to set up than camera because it always seems to me like this whole thing of like getting the microphones up and out of shot and chasing cables. So you had a car that was already rigged for all of that and yourself.
Or somebody was rigging it while we were shooting on.
Screens changed so that you could.
A little bit. I was going to do a lot more of that. We had all these NDs cut as you do for all the windows and stuff. But in the end, and I had LED lights and stuff rigged that I could put in, by the visors to punch light in because the back of the SUVs are ND,
Yes.
But that's what they are.
Right.
So, but then in the end, I ended up just putting sticking diffusion on the front windscreen or on the side
to
window
knock it down.
To push light in. So
I see.
The sun would hit the diffusion and push light into the car. So if I used a very light diffusion, I'd just get a little bit extra lift, and a bit more natural that way because as the car moved, then the light would change in a naturalistic way.
Yeah.
So I tried to do as little as possible. I mean,
So the back of the SUVs are quite dark. So you didn't tamper with that. You just left those ND windows as they were.
Yeah. One or 2 places I think I put a bit more on so I could see the background.
Yeah. Right.
Especially on the border. I mean, the border when the border. I mean, the aerials were actually the real. What's it called? The Bridge of America between El Paso and Juarez. But everything we did with a shootout and that and in the cars, we basically built a set on a parking lot, and there's extensions. You know, the road, the bridge goes up,
right,
and that's a CG
blocks
extension.
it. Yeah.
You know, afterwards. So we had a blue screen either side, but basically we had like 150 cars.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Set. Which way you're looking now?
Yeah. So you basically had the road go like that.
Yes.
And every shot you did that way and that way, you had to CG some background.
Yeah. So big
but
blue
all
screens.
the side shots was fine. Because there was nothing.
You're
there
looking
anyway,
off the side of a road.
Fence. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was actually really, really efficient. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had 200-foot blue screens on either end. So.
Yeah, that's a bloody big blue screen.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
yeah, massive.
Yeah,
but only at the end to protect the actors just from where their movement were. So nothing else.
Where the bridge is supposed to go up, and you had these cars on the.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Invisible. You'd never have known it. Of course, it was absolutely invisible.
Yeah, and then on the aerial shot of the SUVs going over the real Bridge of Americas, the SUVs are CG'd into the helicopter shot. Right. So as you tip up to see Juarez, it's all in sync. Would have taken a while to do that, I think, with the real vehicles.
Yeah, you could still be
especially
there.
Without
you
permission.
could still be there trying to get it.
Yeah, we thought we were going to try and shoot on a real bridge, but you just couldn't get permission. Obviously,
So when you were free drive like that and you were moving and you had light playing from the hood of the car coming down onto the... You were on the move there?
No, I didn't have light.
No, that was...
Oh, the natural light. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
So when it was free drive and the actors were going along in cars, you didn't light it. It was just natural lit. You didn't put anything down from units down through.
I didn't light any of the stuff.
All free drive without
I didn't light anything from leaving, leaving America, going into Mexico and coming back. I didn't use a single.
No bounces off the...
No, nothing.
Nothing. Just let it go.
Just a little bit of diffusion, as say. Sometimes I cut like a 9-inch piece and put it across the top of the windshield.
Right.
Or put it to the left or right, and just you don't see it, and it's just punching a bit of light in.
The actors driving, or was it?
It's mostly. I mean, with the actors were driving, most of the time.
Yeah. Because it was on them driving.
Up and I put a little hole they could look through.
That's nice of you. That's really nice.
I thought otherwise. I was in it, so I was a bit worried. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bothered.
Right. Oh gosh. So the film you're now planning with Denis
Villeneuve,
is a Blade Runner.
It's a sequel, yes. It's 30 years later, and that's all I can say. Otherwise, they'll shoot me.
But that's been in the press, so it's not a
No.
secret. But,
it's 30 years on, and Harrison Ford is 30 years older.
Great. Well, I'll tell you what. You better get on with it.
Oh, yeah.
But that was fantastic. Thanks, Roger. I'm going to throw this out now to members of the audience to ask their own questions. How about that?
Nothing could be good.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, sir. Give that man a microphone. You're on.
Congratulations, Ron. That was amazing. And thank you, James, as well, for your work on the film. That was a very, very good piece of work. I'd like to ask, because in the film I noticed some imagery in particular which reminded me of some of your other work, particularly No Country, when the soldiers are walking in front of the headlights of the car, and it's in one of the final scenes, and the kind of shadows are strung across the hill. Another scene was imagery from your other films. I can't remember the other one now, but how much does all your other work influence the work that you do currently? And to what degree do you think it kind of returns in your modern work?
I know I like certain imagery, I suppose. I mean, I like, the idea of the shadows from the headlights is a bit obvious, but yeah, I mean, you know, but I don't think about, oh, I did it this way before, and why don't I do that? I'd never do that. Well, not consciously, maybe I do, but not consciously. But yeah, obviously there's certain things that attract me, imagery that interests me, and I'll probably. Yeah. But I also, in a way, I see this film as kind of an extension, in a way, of No Country for Old Men. This is sort of, you know, it's like being very lucky in doing like a whole series of westerns in a way, you know, like that seem to be, you know, if it's, I don't know, maybe I think Jesse James and True Grit, and then you go through the No Country and then the Valley of Elah and this, and it gradually gets more modern, but there's still kind of, somehow there seems to me a progression in that sort of, I kind of really, it's great, I like that.
Yes, I noticed one in there from Jesse James, which was a soldier or policeman or whatever standing there with no light on him whatsoever, and the car comes around and picks him up, and then you track over towards him, which is very nice, and it wasn't at all self-conscious as Jesse. It was just like a really, really natural way to bring him in.
The problem in that was, again, it was a transition where they leave the army base and say, we're going to drive 2 hours to Tucson or whatever. Yeah. And you think, okay, so we shoot 2 hours of driving. How do we get from A to B? So you want to start in darkness, and you want to start with just the headlights coming in the blackness, so you don't know where you are, and then you come around and
you just slide over.
You know what I mean? It's like a very simple, quick way of making that transition without it jumping. You know. And also the other thing was that was a huge light. That was a huge.
There with all the buses and all that.
That was probably the most difficult location, because what it was a fertilizer plant. So not only did they have to literally get rid of all the shit that was piled up in that space, which was tons and tons, and there was basically no light to speak of there. So all the lights in the ceiling are things that we had made. You know, they're all 2K blondes within an aluminum housing to look like the sort of ceiling.
Industrial units.
Yeah. But I mean, you needed them quite big, otherwise they'd have looked nothing. The ceiling was like 50 foot up, I think. So it was a really big space. So.
Dozens of them.
Yeah, we had 54 lights, or something like that.
But it dropped off at the sides. It was in a pool of light around the buses and the people.
Yeah, and then there was some sodium lights on the actual building, and I left them because that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
So just that line, it just enough to delineate the side of the building, but not really light it. So, you know, but that was quite a big rig.
Yeah. Anybody, any other questions? Milan?
How did you choose lenses? And did you do anything special about close-ups of Emily? I mean, she's a beautiful young lady, but her eyes were sort of full of life and very crystal and crisp and really amazing.
I don't really do. How do I put this? I don't really do anything special for an actor. I think, you know, with scene, you think about where the actor is in a scene. As I said, like at the end, you wanted Emily in front light and Benicio sitting with the darkness and the light behind him. But I like the present. We shot on the Alexa. We shot open gate, which is almost like shooting, I suppose, Super 35. So, you know, most of the close-ups I was doing on a 40, and my range is probably 27 to a 40 most of the time. But close-ups would be a 40. A few maybe on a 50. But I just like the presence of the character, and I like the feel of the background. If I'm shooting on a 40 at, say, 2.2 or 2.8, the background has a slight softness, but it's not like, I mean, I'm not a fan of anamorphic, because if you do that, the background's really going, and it looks kind of fake to me. I like feeling the presence of the world around the character, you know.
Also, if you're this close together like we are, it's right for it.
Well, you feel you're there, don't you?
But how many are over there are like 150 mil or 200 mil? What are we doing over there when we're having a conversation here, and you put a lens here, and this is the close-up from here? Surely there's no other place to be.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It's extraordinary how
physically moving.
You know, let's do it from over there. And compress it and throw it all out of focus. So it takes you out of the moment, I think. So,
But the great thing about, having an actress like Emily is but she looks great whatever you do. So, hard light or soft light, she looks great. So.
If you'd said you'd used heavy filtration on it, I think I would have gone down to the pub now.
I only shot one film with any filtration on it, and that was like 1986, I want to say. And I regretted doing it ever since.
When they're out the room, everybody, you don't just slip one in quietly into the...
No, I've got into trouble because I refused to put filtration on an actress, actually. So, but there we go.
Any other questions?
You didn't answer the part about the lenses. Which lenses did you choose?
What variety? What make?
Oh, you always use the same way.
I've been using master primes now since, I tested the master primes when they were being developed. And I test all the other lenses as they come out, but I'm still using the master primes because they're lighter, or they're pretty light, and they're faster. And they're really sharp, I think they're great. Yeah. So it's not, it's no choice really. I'm not somebody who said, well, I'll do these on the Kiowas or whatever, and let's use these old lenses to get such and such. I don't. I just use master prime's fine. That's simple. I just do that.
Okay, another question.
My question relates a bit to the stuff you were talking about coverage. I really liked the way that a lot of the time the action, certainly in the special squad, was really concentrating on the actors' backs, or that's how it seemed to me. And that's quite unusual, not to feel you have to give a full face close-up for emphasis. And I really liked that, and I wondered how decided that was between you and the director, or whether that was something that just started to happen.
I really think in that way we have similar sensibility, but we discussed it a lot. Again, sometimes you talk about references and the feel of it, just to understand what a director's thinking or express how you're thinking. You mentioned other movies, and I particularly mentioned, talked about Jean-Pierre Melville, and in terms of the action, if you watch, Second Breath or Circle Rouge or something, that...
The Samurai.
The Samurai, yeah. The coverage is so minimal and it's like so powerful for it. He's my favourite filmmaker of any filmmaker, really. And so you gradually... We have a similar sensibility, but that's kind of, it's a deliberate thing, and again, it's also a practical thing. We didn't have time to shoot a huge number of cuts. We had to be really economic, with it.
But it was as if with the characters, when you had the FBI characters, that was interesting to me as well, because it was almost like a metaphor, because with the FBI characters talking together, as you said, in the car, for instance, you saw more of their faces, and then the kind of the backs and the kind of lack of detailed information that you saw with the kind of secret preoccupations of this squad, and the way that was hidden from the FBI was quite interesting as a metaphor, we were seeing their backs most of the time.
I'm not sure that was sort of, as you put it like that, so consciously thought out, but it was also very much, Emily's perspective. Yeah. Yes. So, we tried, not all the time, but we tried to center the film around her and what she saw,
And their backs was what she was looking at.
Yeah.
Which and also heighten the tension. It's very powerful looking at the back of a person's neck, because you're immediately expecting the worst, I think, and also you can feel the tension in their neck muscles and bracing themselves.
Well, especially the angle on Silvio in the police car at the end before he gets out and gets shot. It's like
very much so.
It's almost sad, really. That shot. You think he's so threatened by it.
Were there other? You talked about those two Mexican films, the Mexican films that you looked at with Denis in prep. as influential thing. What about other reference material? Photography, stills photography for the film? For this particularly.
Yeah, I love the work of Alex Webb. You know, Alex Webb is fantastic color photography, and he did a whole series on Mexico and the border, and there's some very famous shots of actually the Bridge of Americas, and just you can't do it in a movie, but the complexity of his frames and the depth in his frames and his use of color is just, I look at his work and it leaves me actually speechless. It's so amazing. You think this has got to be completely created. How does he get that moment, those juxtaposition of people and imagery in the same frame? It's really beautiful. So, you know, Denny and I looked at a lot of his stuff.
With the designer as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And Patrice as well, huge numbers of images.
Right.
And you look at it, but often, you know, a still photograph can be much more complicated, much more complex in its imagery within it than you can do in a film, because it just becomes too overpowering, I think, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Because you can look at it for hours still.
Yeah,
but with
yeah.
what we do,
It's
absolutely
hard to
fleeting.
do it. But we took that and the idea of the colours being quite intense. You know, I mean, like, obviously, this film, the colours compared with Prisoners, for instance, it's night and day, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
And one's totally monochromatic and
Very
and
cool.
the others
Very
kind of, you know, especially the kid at the end where they're playing football. It's very rich and almost oversaturated. Yeah. So that was kind of deliberate, and that came, you know, from us talking about it and from looking at like Alex Webb. And
was that the main one?
Yeah.
Was that the main?
That's the only
influence?
person I remember we really talked about. But then, you know, I'd say Patrice, the production designer, got a huge number of references, and he'd have a kind of, you know, color board of the movie, you know, a palette at each scene. He'd have images that would reference what he thought for the scenes and the sets. And so, you know, it was all great as starting points and discussions, you know.
Gentleman at the back, in the middle there.
Hi. I would just like to ask how you utilize mistakes in your work.
Mistakes?
Yeah, mistakes.
Yeah, you know, I knew Conrad Hall quite well. I was really pleased I met him when I kind of moved to Los Angeles, and spent a long time talking with him about things, all things, and especially talking about mistakes. And he would talk about all these happy accidents, and you know, none of them were accidents. You know, like, there's two in particular he talked about. One was in Fat City, which actually was a reference for this in a way, the contrast between the day exteriors and the day interiors, and that incredible change between the brightness blown out of the exteriors and the darkness of the interior bars. And he said, oh yeah, I put the wrong stock in. And I didn't really ever believe that, because at that time there was no high-speed stock, so he couldn't have done. And then the other thing was, he said, when he was shooting In Cold Blood, and the electrician was walking past the set, and the effects guy was putting rain on the window, and he saw the pattern of the rain, the sharp like, running down, and come on. he figured that out. You kind of make your own accidents, really. I'm just trying to think in that film. Yeah, okay, the one big accident is that when we talked about it, conceptually, the original idea of the film and the landscapes, it was all going to be clean color, cloudless blue skies. We never got a day with a cloudless blue sky. I'm glad to say, because in the end, I think it gives it a fantastic texture, but it was not what we expected. And we were, at the beginning, we were miffed, thinking, oh my God, this is not what we really conceived. But if it had been that, you wouldn't have got the scene on the rooftop looking at Juarez with the gunshots, and you wouldn't have got the guys getting ready to go into the tunnel. I mean, with all that cloud. It
I
was
know,
just,
those dark skies.
So that's a happy accident, really. Yeah. And the other one was, it was when we were outside Kate's flat, and the guy that seduced her in the bar and whatever, they had to fight. They're sitting in the car outside. We did one establishing shot, and it was pouring with rain. So I remember we had to break for lunch and come back, and it just stopped enough to shoot it, and it was all wet. And of course, it was lucky it was, because then we shot the interior of the car on stage or in a warehouse, and it wouldn't have been quite so easy had we not had the water on the windows.
Broke up the background.
Yeah,
that
it gives you
there.
something that, so
Cheated it.
Yeah, I might not have done that. I wouldn't have wet down the location had it not been raining. Yeah, so yeah. Thank you. Okay.
There's a question here just come back down. There's a gentleman here in Nick Noland asking a question there. If you could just pass him a microphone. There you go.
Hi, great work, Roger. Love the
Thanks,
saturation and the intensity of it all. I'm just really asking a bit about the future. We're coming to a stage now where we're going to have projection with HDR images, with laser projectors. We'll have completely black screens. And I'm wondering whether you're beginning to think about how that is going to influence how we work, how cinematographers work with light, and particularly in the shadow areas.
Well, I must say, first thing I said to James after the film ended, I said the blacks weren't very good, were they? The projection, the black is not brilliant. So it'd be really nice. I like good blacks. I'm not sure it would make any difference really, other than the blacks will be blacker.
You might have to look after the shadows in a slightly different way. Just because at the moment when we're looking at the screen, we talk about black. It's grey. It's not black.
Yeah. No, but it should be black. I've seen this, and it's been jet black. But it's rare to get a projection that's that good.
Well, you can't, because the projectors are throwing out a certain amount of light even when they're projecting dead black.
Right.
With the LED projectors, there will be no light when there is blackness. And I think that's going to make quite a lot of difference. I'm just thinking, some of these people, some of our friends here, this is going to be the world they're coming into. We're exiting this one somewhat.
I can only see that as an advantage, though, because think about, I am not so much in this film, but I just think of, Jesse James or something, where you have a black screen and you suddenly see the train coming. Well, that's okay. You see it on film, it's black, but you don't see it black on a digital projection at the moment, but it should be. So.
Will become a reality.
Well, what you mean? You think there should always be detail, or I'm not sure what you're saying, really. I don't mind losing. I like losing things in the shadows and the highlights.
And if it wasn't there, you could put a little in, couldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, you might have to consider. I think that's what you're saying, isn't it? Putting a little bit more in the shadows.
I suspect so. We haven't really got the experience yet.
Yeah, I don't know. But on the other hand, to counter that, the range of the Alexa is quite extraordinary, isn't it? You know what I mean? I'm in a DI. I'm often pushing the detail out of the black.
No, I think from the camera end, I think we're in good shape. But it's how the projection is going to be handled in the future.
Yeah.
More and more with the Dolby systems.
Yeah, it would all be 3D by then, wouldn't it?
I think Claudio...
And I'll have retired. And I'll be fishing,
There could be some very unhappy people here at Regent Street Cinema hearing their blacks on.
Well, no, it's hard to get a good black on a digital projection, especially at that. Yeah.
Any more questions? There was one at the back that they were waiting. Hold on 1 second. We'll just do this one up in the rear circle.
Hello. I was just going to ask, you talked about...
Speak up.
You talked about how you talked about how you'd shoot the scene, but how do you decide on lighting? Do you talk to the director as well about it? Or is it something you get to on set and you've already done it and then he'll go, oh yeah, that looks great? Or does he have any specific requests in terms of lighting? Or is it more about shots when you collaborate with the director?
I think lighting is a general conversation, but I'm just thinking if there was any specific conversation about anything. No, I mean, the conversation about where Emily sat and Benicio sat in that last scene in the kitchen. No, we'd have a general conversation about lighting, and you'd look at locations or you'd discuss sets, and I might suggest something about the blocking or where the window was, or, you know, the longest conversation we had about lighting was actually the whole night sequence going into the tunnel, because obviously it's meant to be so dark at night they have to use night vision and infrared. So we were thinking, well, how are we going to shoot this scene? How much do we want that is, objective on it, rather than being...
with the night vision.
Rather than from their perspective. And actually, we shot a couple of shots. There's only one in the film, which is the silhouette of the guy going down the tunnel and pulling the knife. We shot a couple of other shots similarly against the darkest sky we could do, really. But they seemed to, in the cut, they didn't work. They were just ridiculous. So it ended up staying with this perspective and seeing everything in the night vision, and that was a very conscious thing, because it didn't really make sense otherwise.
But in terms of, just taking your question there, in terms of Denis getting involved in lighting for different scenes, not really. Just you had the game plan of what the film was going to look like in terms of the overall conversations about it. When it comes to lighting it, leave it to you.
Yeah, I think so, really. I mean, we talked more on Prisoners about even the general kind of lighting. The specific scenes on Prisoners, because we hadn't worked together, there were probably more discussions about specific scenes, about, I was saying about what I was thinking or whatever. But I can't remember any on Sicario necessarily.
When the director
other than looking at a few images,
I find that very disturbing personally. It's a personal thing of mine when they start getting into different shots within a scene, or is there enough, or is there enough on her? I find that conversation very that really throws me. I like to once it's been set to just get on with it, really, because you know where you're pitching it. You know what you've got to do.
But, I mean, this is
now
really...
with digital, it's a lot lot more cool. That conversation doesn't really take place on digital anymore, really.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, really.
It doesn't. It's a film thing.
You used to have a conversation. I mean, I've said it a number of times with people that, I remember having a conversation with a director about shooting a scene in profile silhouette, and sitting in dailies, and the director saying, "But I can't see their faces." And there's this whole, what's the definition of a silhouette? I mean, you can't see their faces because it's a silhouette. But I mean, so you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have that problem anymore, because there it is on the monitor.
I can't see their faces.
It's on the monitor, and somebody would say it on the day, and I think that's really good. A lot of people say, well, digital and having a calibrated monitor on set is taken away from a cinematographer. I completely feel the reverse. I think it's giving you more strength.
I think that's bullshit.
Because you've got it there, the director sees it there, you can push it further because you're not worried what they're going to say afterwards.
The conversation is much more about how about we... How about we?
Yeah.
Down.
Yeah.
That's much more about it.
Yeah.
And then it's, oh, really? That looks great. You know,
Yeah.
oh, well, what about that one off as
Yeah.
well? You know, it's much more about that than it is about, you know, I can't see their faces, or there's not enough on her, or, absolutely. Can't hear you. Is there another question there? Somebody wanted to ask another question? Down here, this gentleman here, third row back.
Hi, sorry, mine was sort of half answered before, but in relation to the night vision and the thermal imaging sort of sections, did that change your approach to how you're going to light it at all, sort of shooting in those different...
Well, the thermal imaging, you don't light it. The only thing we did with the thermal imaging is that I got the camera, you know, we got the camera from this company for a day just to test it and play around with it. I never shot any thermal before. And we figured, oh, it's heat. We'll be really interested in the footprints. So the shot you see where you're following the footprints, the prop man heated up these boots, walked the path before we shot the shot. What you don't see, which is a pity, because when we shot the test, the footprints disappeared as the heat dissipated, and it was a really cool thing, that these disappearing footprints. But it didn't work in the shot because you couldn't hold it. Anyway, blah blah. But the night vision, is interesting because we wanted a bad image, so we shot it. We shot it with as little light as possible. The more light you put on, then the better the image quality becomes. So we shot it, you know, as wide as we could with as little light, but some of it was completely gone. So I ended up putting up a 12 by 12 bounce on a small crane, like a 60-foot crane, I think it was. And I had I think it was a 1K pup shooting on it, and it was about, 200 feet or 300 feet away from the thing. So it was I think it was the most minimal night lighting I've ever done. It was pretty good. But you just needed a little bit of a shape, and the night vision, enhancing system was, it was just,
Still had very nice quality. It had very nice quality. It was like the shadows were down and very nicely high lit. It looked like a sort of, they've come on a few in the last few years. It looks like it's come on big time.
There's a little bit more shape to it. But if you hadn't have that, if I hadn't have put that, the light was so flat that it was all mush, and you wouldn't have had the sort of shadow of the cliff where the tunnel entrance was, or you wouldn't have had the slight edge light on the characters.
No, it's very nice contrast it gave.
I thought I had to put something up,
I just thought since the last time I saw it on the film a few years ago, it had come on, it had improved. It must be.
It's the same.
It's the same.
I think because we rented 2 from this company that manufactured them, and then we made 2 from Panavision, I think, through Otto's, because they're all different anyway. But it was exactly the same system I used, I think, in 1994, I think, on Courage Under Fire.
They haven't come on.
No, exactly the same. Yeah, which was fine for us. So you want it kind of shitty.
I was thinking, very nice quality to it. Are there any other questions? Where? Oh, okay.
Hi. I'm always fascinated by your use of reflective surfaces and how it dramatically punctuates scenes. Of course, the television screens in No Country, and 2 or 3 times in this film, I believe. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about using, not showing the thing itself, but its reflection, actually.
I don't know. I mean, it's not. I mean, in No Country, it was like, Tommy Lee sitting in front of the TV with the milk on the table, and I just sort of saw his reflection in the TV and kind of, went, something, let's shoot that. It's things you see. I mean, not, you storyboard thing, but you see things after the event. The thing, the sequence in this film that I hate most is in the bank, and I just think that we really missed something on that. It could have been much more interesting with reflections and stuff. It just, as it was very nothing. Yeah, I don't know. Reflections.
In the golden eye. Nigel's there.
Roger, I'd be interested to know how you evaluate the potential in imagery, or when you're looking at a script, and you can see the amazing opportunities such as this film offered you as a cinematographer in terms of images. How you balance that against the quality of the script?
I might sound flippant, but I don't think about the imagery at all. I don't. I mean, I was, when Tim Robbins I'd worked with a couple of times, and he asked me to do his prison film. What was it called?
Which one?
No, the one, Dead Man Walking. And he said, we'd done Shawshank, and he said, I didn't say anything. I had a chat with him, and he said, you might not want to do this because I don't want it to be like Shawshank. I want it to be really kind of bland, and I don't want any, I don't want it to be visually interesting at all. And I said to him that that was perfect what he said, because I felt the same about the piece. And there's nothing worse than when a director says, I want it to look like, something you've done before. Why should it look like that script? Every script has its own presence and stuff, I think. And I read a script, and it's got to, characters have got to affect me. I've got to feel
make you weep.
Well,
Yeah,
usually I've got to feel depressed. I love depressing movies. And no, I really like films that, so I read this, and I loved it. In a way, I was nervous about it because it was so complex, but they didn't have a lot of money to do it, and they wanted to shoot it all in Albuquerque, which we did. And it was a devil of a job to get them to actually go to Mexico and spend the money to do the journey into Mexico. But that was kind of crucial to the piece that we showed. A totally different, a different world, a different texture.
Had to be.
Had to be.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Yeah. I judge the script just on the characters, really.
And the emotional value, how it hits you as a film.
Don't you? I mean, I don't.
Partly, yeah. Something I fight with myself about, because it's terrible walking in with a preconceived idea.
Yeah.
But if it's really good, I lose that. I lose the visual thing about it. I could do this or that. Yeah. And I'm much more taken by it, and it suddenly becomes a page turner, and you just can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah. I mean, this
and that must have been like reading this. It must have been like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of Blade Runner. I mean, you go, sequels and all that. You're kind of like a little bit nervous about. But I've always wanted to do a serious science fiction film. And the few that I've been approached about, what they're like. There's very few serious science fiction films out there. So read the script, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be doing it.
What would you call a serious science fiction film?
Well, I mean, the original Planet of the Apes was a serious science fiction film, wasn't it? Or the original Blade Runner was a serious science fiction. It's about, nature of humanity and stuff. Whereas I think most supposed science fiction films are more science fantasy, and I don't like science fantasy.
True.
You know what I mean?
I certainly know what I felt like when I saw Planet of the Apes the first time. It was absolutely
it was gut-wrenching in a way.
Jaw-dropping.
Oh my God, yeah.
Any other questions?
Oh, hi, Roger. I know you've touched on it briefly, but in your interiors, where you have a very hot exterior and a dark interior, you seem to be playing right at the very edges of the blacks and the highlights. And I just wondered if, since you've started working in digital, with digital cameras, if that makes you braver, sort of pushing to the limits of the stop range within a frame.
Well, yeah, it does really, because you've got more tolerance either way. Especially working with Reggie in that white kitchen. I mean, it was sometimes I think I was going to lose his eyes, but I knew I could bring them up a little bit in the DI and stuff. I think rather than the digital, camera, I think the advent of the DI really has given a lot more comfort zone really to the work. Because as soon as I was starting doing DIs, I mean, like, Jesse James or something, you can push it. You can push it in the post, which you couldn't obviously when it was, photochemical all the way through. But I mean, I get, this
scary.
Yeah, no, really.
Go back there.
Really, yeah.
Very scary.
It would be to go all the way back now.
I know.
I mean, the last thing I
a bit
that,
and running through. Oh, hold on.
I mean, the last one I did on film, the Coen Brothers film is on film, and
photochemical timing.
No. But I'm saying it's shot on film, and that was scary enough. I wouldn't want to do it, not have a DI.
A grading.
Yeah. But I think, the contrast in the interiors, I mean, you look at a film like this, it's like, there's a few times, like the SWAT house I was saying at the beginning, you come from the exterior to a stage interior, and you're cross-cut in between, Reggie goes out the door from the interior of the set, and then you see a side shot of him standing over them being sick, and there's a little hut behind him, and that's obviously on location. Well, to make those cuts, to make them smooth, then the exterior of the set interior has to be pretty bright. Then you get situations where you're in, Kate's apartment at the end there. That whole sequence where she's on the balcony and the curtains are going. Well, as soon as she comes in, you're on a set. So if you don't have the exterior reasonably bright, you're going to wonder why you're not singing. Just to make that match, really, I think.
It's a balance.
It is, isn't it? And also, you want a strong silhouette again, whatever,
Yeah, believability.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
This is a great thing now that obviously with a digital capture, you can punch a lot of light through a window and actually allow that to go, and you can pick up more of the information that light's doing in the rest of the set where you want the light. And then in the DI, you can knock that window down a little bit.
I don't know what I'd do without it.
Yeah, really.
I don't know what I'd do without that bit.
You bounce the light on the ceiling and it would look awful. That's what you do, isn't it? If it was film, you know what I mean? You'd have to
I've had to do that, but I mean, just to get light in the room, as I think it was your idea in the first place, that coming in through a window, very close into a building and banging it up
in the
through.
ceiling,
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
You were the one who told me that. But now with this thing, but that's different. Now you can just put it in over the top and wind it back later.
Especially because
the colour of it too.
Yeah.
Because you, of all people, when you make absolutely no prisoners about blue light, do you? You just do blue light and then pull it back. You don't really worry too much about, oh my God, it's like, very, very, like when you use Muscos and, night exteriors type thing.
Well, sometimes, you do, I mean, like...
You don't gel them though.
On No Country, I did gel them a little bit. Yeah. But I'm retrospectively, I don't know why, because I wasn't mixing too many sources. Just because I had the headlights of the vehicles against the moonlight. But on True Grit, we had so many lamps, you just couldn't gel it. It would have been a
let it go
in the wind and everything.
Yeah,
it would be a nightmare. So you just let it go. But now, it's an advantage now, isn't it? That if you do you know, if you do a scene where you're mixing lighting at twilight at night or something, it's an advantage to have a little more separation in the colour.
Because you can key it better.
In the DI, you can key it.
Yes,
and
you can
put
key
them
it
where you want.
key back in much better.
I mean, I like to get as close as possible, but then I err on the
well,
side.
it's good for everybody to see it like that.
Yeah.
They look at it and it's, you know, say big blue light, which is not going to be there. But on the other hand, it's a great another great tool that you can use in terms of mix and matching.
Yeah.
Mixed lighting.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, when you look back at all the films you've shot, is there one that you are very, very fond of when you look in retrospect and think, wow, how did I do this?
I was sitting there thinking that just now.
I think all of them
and I got to shoot the film and you know, you kind of, you have kind of sentimental reasons why you like a film, or content reasons, or there's so many reasons. But I don't know. In a different day, a different hour, you might think of a different film. I suppose of all the films I've shot, I think the one maybe that stands out most to me is The Man Who Wasn't There, because I think it's the most you know, coherent as a piece. Everything fits together to me. The script, the light, the shots, everything. I think that's probably
It's a very stylized film.
Yeah, it is. But I think that makes it more difficult to bring off, and I think it does. That it's just, I don't think there's anything in it out of place. Whereas some scenes in this jump at me as being out of place. But I think The Man Who Wasn't There was. I don't think there's anything in it that's out of place.
That light and shadow, big light and shadow in that film.
Yeah.
Like chiaroscuro almost.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. I mean, it was great. But I mean, I think...
A lot of fun with lighting.
Yeah, but there was a script to do it, you know, and it was just like the wire-ish theme to it. But I just think the whole, you know, picturization of the character was really good.
And the black and white
very
thing.
Successful.
You get it all out of your system in one film.
And all those silhouettes. I mean, Christ, wonderful. Yeah.
Cohen's saying that we can't see their faces.
They would never say that.
Yeah.
I don't think they would ever say that.
No, I can't imagine.
Darker. No.
Dick, I've been asked to, sadly, we could go on all night, but our time is up. And on behalf of the BSC, I'd like to thank Roger and Dick for